some really awesome people in this room, and there's some really awesome people in this room. So I'm sure these awesome people need to meet. Please make sure that you take time to mingle with everyone. Anyone who needs the bathroom, they're outside. So if you walk down the ramp, turn right, and you'll see the sign in the far right corner. There's also a door that is right adjacent to the bathroom, so you can use to come in through the back if you want to cause any more disruption. I think that's it. In case of a fire alarm, please take the stairs, take the lift, don't hold anyone down, don't grab your bag, don't grab your drink. Unless it's in the bottle, which is very important, you might need it. That's it. I'd love to point out some key people who've put this event together. It will be really great to know who to reach out to tap if you need anything. Please tap me when you say it. Brian, the back there, Lateral Frontiers. Hi, Brian. Brian's spot. Been running up and down, let's get this together. Please reach out to Brian if you need anything. Anyone in a near Kenya t-shirt and drama, who is also from the near Kenya team, be able to help. Let's get started. First off, special shout out, as I said earlier, the Lateral Frontiers who are our co-hosts this evening, the ones that are part of us. And I'd love to get Brian to come over and just share a little bit about Lateral. Yeah, over to you.
Hello, thank you so much for that. Hey everyone, so glad to see many familiar faces in the room. I'm Brian, and I'd like to just say a bit about what we do at Lateral. So Lateral is a Pan-African focused fund. The offices in New York, California, and Nairobi, and soon to open an office in Lagos and Cairo. So we invest in fintech, clean energy, and our first fund was $23 million fund. We invested in 23 companies, and our fund two, which will be closing next year, is going to be a $100 million fund. We'll be focusing on fintech, climate tech, and Web3 blockchain solutions, hence the event. So we write our checks at the seed stage with the ability to follow on up to Series B. So that's really where we play. And then with regards to the event and why we thought it was wise to have this, put this together, we have been doing a lot of work around trying to understand blockchain solutions globally and on the continent, trying to really go deep in looking at the use cases. So we've spoken to different players globally and even on the continent, and basically our idea for this event, we had 3 goals in mind. So number one is first of all to gather all the key people that we think have been building things, building solutions in this area, to get the perspective. And also number two, sort of like just advance the discourse. We are firm believers that if we put smart people in the room, there inevitably will be creation of new knowledge. And that's exactly what we think we will achieve at this event. The third thing, we are also very keen on meeting new people for 2 reasons mainly. We have 23 companies that we've invested in, and these companies are always hiring. So any of the people in this group could work at any of our companies. And then the other reason is to get to see the exciting and cool things that different founders are building and the solutions that they're coming out to solve the difficult problems on the continent. So the team is here from Lateral, that's Olomide, Stan over there at the back, and every way to the back. It's right there. So feel free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to chat and explore any relevant opportunities of collaboration. So thank you very much.
Brian. So now on to the main bit. to introduce our panelists, who are leaders and experts in their own right. I know this is the right thing to say, but I genuinely mean it when I say I'm so excited to be part of this conversation and to moderate this conversation. So, allow me to introduce your panelists this evening. Ladies first, of course. Where Moana is a brilliant mind. I didn't even get the lineup of things to say. But where is from MFS Africa, where I'm a fintech expert and an expert of many things. If you get a chance to grab her at the end of this panel, please do. Where if you'd like to make your way out. We've also got Vincent Lee. Vincent is from Adovas, he's a partner at Adovas, and he is a great person to contribute to this conversation. I think it's an amazing thing that we have essentially 3 key L1s on the same stage. And this is happening more and more every day, so I'm excited to have Vincent from Adovas, which is running on stage with us here. Eddie Carver. Eddie is CEO of Vibranium IoT, building Mamiya, and an expert in digital IDs. And finally, Danielle Pinoto. If you know cello, you know Danielle. Danielle is head and assistant lead at cello, and again, very versatile on this conversation. So, your moderator for the evening, we use Trini. I introduced myself at the start, but we're going to take an opportunity to introduce myself again because I have the mic. My name is Vivian Milo from the New Kenya team, and I'm really excited to moderate this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel. Today's conversation, as is aptly on there, is going to be about the greatest opportunities for blockchain disruption in Africa. A really broad topic, I'm sure you all agree. I loved one of the posts that I saw online, and there's such a lot of buzzwords on there, but it is going to be an awesome conversation. And I think the awesome thing about this conversation is that it gives us lots of room to maneuver, right? And at the moment, there's been so many conversations about Africa being the future, which has its own connotations that we will go into. But there's no doubt that there are so many opportunities, so many applications for Web3 across the continent that are happening now, that are happening in the near future, and that have already happened. So I think to kick off this conversation, I'll just ask, and I'll start with you, Vera. Why do you think there are so many opportunities, there's so much vibrance around Web3 and the possibilities of application?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. Lillian's a good friend as well, so thank you. So I think to sum it all up, and Lily, you've heard me give this spiel before, but I think that Web3 is so ripe in Africa right now because this narrative of Africa is rising. Like, for those of us who are millennials or Gen X, we've heard that story our whole lives. Africa has risen. The time has come. We've already risen. We're no longer on the cusp. And with that rise comes a lot of complexities and things that are kind of hindering us. But that our growth is not going to look like it has looked in the West or in the global North. It's going to be a story of our own. And Web3 allows us to kind of take control of that narrative. It really, we've spent all this time. So I'm in the fintech and crypto Web3 DeFi space. So very interested in financial services. But I think that we're going from an era of financial inclusion, which has been great. There's a lot of work to do in that space. And Web3 enables us to have what I call financial freedom. So if we talk about Web 2, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, Web 1 was read, Web 2 was read and write, Web 3 is read, write, and own. So Web 3 enables us to have ownership of using the blockchain, using various new technologies, to really own that narrative for ourselves as Africa. And that's super high level. We'll get into the details of what I mean by that in the talk, but that's what I think the hack is.
Absolutely. And I think you have such a unique perspective around like what is coming up, especially with the recent buzz around fintech. And someone else who would likely have really great insight would be yourself, Danielle. So I'll ask to Danielle, and perhaps you could share a little bit about what it is that you are seeing, either building on a channel or wider across the ecosystem that is seconding what I said in terms of development and the ecosystem looking very different, but also really vibrant and exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, much better. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me and organizing this. Yeah, so to your question and to Brian's point, and looking at this from a cause effect perspective, there was massive investments that went into internet infrastructure in the 2000s, early 2000s, and there was also, at least for Kenya, massive investments that went into education, at least for the broader population, bringing literacy levels up. And when mobile came in, it brought ubiquity to accessing information, and that changed the landscape of how people can get educated outside of traditional schooling. And so all these things put together have created a very interesting environment where here in Africa we can now start seeing agency from people, because learnings that they pick up, from the internet and from the people we meet on the internet are integrated, and we are able now to build solutions for ourselves and products for ourselves. And so a very interesting observation came also from discussions I was having with somebody in the traditional finance space, who was saying when he was my age, the stock market was really vibrant. That's where things were happening. Every brilliant guy wanted to go and work in the Nairobi Securities Exchange because that's where it was the buzz of the city at the time, at least in the financial services space. But he said right now he's not seeing as much vibrance and activity, and he has seen all that action has moved to crypto, and he was observing his son who had transitioned and was really interested in global protocols more than he was interested in local businesses than in the stock market. So there's that international aspect that comes to play when we're looking at Web3, where people in Africa will be exposed to opportunities to build solutions globally, and even those that are building locally, are coming in with some very interesting evolutions of existing businesses. So, for instance, there's one firm I think is really popular. Many of us may know Charlie from Newsroom, who's building a marketplace with people. And so there's products listed. You can make purchases using crypto, and then you can also earn a part of the network in terms of points. So we've been living in the points ecosystem with supermarkets all through, but now what he has brought is a product that can scale across Africa if you choose to go that direction. It can scale on the direct-to-customer perspective, and it can also scale on the B2B perspective, because it can still be adopted by businesses who want to involve more people in their growth story. And so I'm starting to see many founders, this is to your question, what I'm seeing, many founders who are now interested in not only extracting profit from the market, but also offering the market an opportunity to grow with the platforms that they use every day. And so this is a discussion to continue to have with founders, and it's really exciting to see that they are thinking about growing with others rather than just growing themselves and being lords and masters over everybody. And so that's a very interesting perspective that I'm getting to see, and crypto enables that. Beyond that is the other everyday products and services that come in. You know that allow people to have access to finance and financial tools where they were previously not. And also crypto being a tool that we use to coordinate allows us to do a lot of interesting things. Celo is really big on refi, but before I put in a plug for Celo, there was a very interesting project that I saw out in the Congo where the government was auctioning oil blocks and crypto people aggregated funds and bought an oil block just to prevent the clearing of that area. And so there are very interesting dynamics that are coming in from the crypto perspective. Many of them would be hard to imagine. So we just continue observing and seeing what's coming up, but a lot in the way of coordination and working with others.
Daniel, I wanted to interrupt. Can you explain what refi is? Because I feel like not a lot of people know what it is, and it's a really fascinating term, so please explain that.
Yes, and that's a very good question. I attended a workshop in Kika. There's a company that's doing geospatial data on crops and people who are cultivating in ways that retain carbon in the ground. So in the farming business, you could get a tractor and you could dig trenches that are really deep. And so that one is called tilling. And the idea here is that you release the carbon that was already trapped in the earth into the atmosphere. While if you do a no-till type of cultivation where you cultivate very lightly, then you help to retain more carbon. And so these kind of practices are being incentivized through crypto, actually, where these farmers would get an incentive in terms of the carbon credits that they help to secure would be given to them, and they'd have the option of selling them for cash. And so that was the basis of the discussion in Kika. And so we had a very interesting time explaining what refi is to the farmers, because by the time I was showing up, I had one of these buzzword explanations of what refi was. And so the way I came to understand it for myself is through, I say, looking at the opposite of something to understand what it is. And so when I looked at regeneration, the opposite of it is decay. And so it gave me a clear picture of what regeneration is, which is, bringing back to life or bringing back to the state that a thing was in. When I look at the financial system that we currently have, which is very extractive, I see it creates a lot of decay, right? So you have companies that would spill their effluent into rivers, and they will not get, or rather they will not pay for that. It would be a very cheap way for them to dispose their refuse, but then at the same time they'll be selling the products and be declaring profits. And so that's regenerating to the ecology, to the environment, to the atmosphere. And because of this very strong push for higher interest, higher yields at all costs, without factoring in climate, ecology, and social aspects of these businesses, we have ended up with a very degenerative system. And so the new system that's coming up is more regenerative, as that opposite would go. And so the idea here would be to have mechanisms that allow regeneration to happen. So, for instance, in places where you have very high interest loans, you would have the option of also offering participatory financing, where you only share on the profits that are obtained rather than targeting interest. Because interest is on a very different paradigm from growth. Interest is unrestrained, and growth has its constraints. So those would be some of the things we'll be looking at when we're considering regenerative finance. Is anything that can help to bring back to life our social relations, our ecology, and environment and atmosphere.
Thank you so much. I think it's such an exciting, I'm going to try and stop with some of these words. It's such an exciting area. But it really is. And I know that the utilization of blockchain technology keeps revealing new ways to utilize it, especially on the continent. But I think the intersection of blockchain and climate, blockchain and ecology, blockchain and environmental sustainability is an awesome thing, and it's something that really sits at the heart of what the technology is about. So thank you so much for sharing that. It strikes me that, as you said earlier, there is such a vibrance across the continent. The utilization of blockchain has been like this discoveries of newer and more thought-provoking ways of utilizing the technology. And as we've seen that utilization spark up, there is more and more interest around supporting developers, supporting builders, supporting people who are building. And so, Vincent, I'll come to you because I know with Adaverse, you guys are constantly looking to engage with different builders and people who are even developers who have ideas and are thinking of new ways to utilize the technology. So I'd love to hear from you what your experience has been and a little bit about where the interest lies, particularly for Adaverse.
Thanks, Robert. Hello, everyone. My name is Vincent. I'm the founding partner of Adaverse, a Cardano ecosystem fund and accelerator, focusing on investment and acceleration to African founders who want to leverage blockchain and Web3. Right? So back to the question. Actually, I'd like to tackle the first question, right? So what is Web3 and what's the difference between Web3 and Web2, right? And just like Barbara mentioned that Web3 is about ownership, right? It's a different way of relations, production relations, right? So Web3 is not really very separated and isolated from Web2, right? So now we see a trend that almost every sector, every product used to be Web2. They can be redo or they can be updated by Web3, the mechanism and also the mindset of Web3, right? So in this sense, I feel in one part, for sure, there are lots of gaps to be filled in Africa, but in another angle, we are very open to any kind of projects and founders in different sectors, in different areas who are trying to use blockchain, right? So back to Adaverse investment thesis. So back from last November, our inception till now, I think it's a little bit more than 1 year. We invested almost 25 companies on the continent. So I think half from West Africa and also another half from South and also East, right? And we see very various kind of companies, right? So we invested in, for sure, the cross-border payment, which is very fundamental issue, and also we invest in on-ramp, off-ramp solutions, and also crypto exchanges. We invested in several crypto exchanges, right? Like Imama from Nigeria, and also Ijara in the Francophone area. And we also invest a lot of different things, right? Like land registration, housing, freelance platform, and gaming, right? So if you look at our portfolio companies, and many different verticals, many sectors, right? So I think in terms of the utility and also the area, crypto, blockchain, Web3, it can be leveraged to many areas. So what I suggest is that founders, entrepreneurs, today, thanks for joining. So just open your mind, right? So no matter what you build right now, think about blockchain, right? And think about how to leverage decentralization, how to leverage the ownership mechanism, and how to leverage the power of blockchain and to bring your project to the next level. And then, in other words, it's always here to invest and also provide hands-on support for our acceleration of the investment. So in the acceleration program, we provide 4 dimensions of support, right? Including tokenization, technical consultancy, marketing, community building, and also content strategy. And the last but not least, fundraising and listing advisory, right? So through all this kind of lifespan support, we want to help the founders from every and each sector to really upscale their product. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you so much. I think this current climate that we're in, again, I'm going to find new vocabulary, please excuse me. But the current climate that we're in has been a really turbulent one. At the moment, we're in a bear market. There's recent events, including the FTX scandal. It's enough to clear a room to just mention FTX right now. So stay with us. But all these sort of disruptions, shall I say, have had a different impact in when we're talking about builders, people who are building businesses, etc. I know, echoing and following on from what you said, Vincent, at Near Kenya, we have a grants system, and we offer the Near Fast grant to developers who are building and looking to build on Near protocol. And one of the things that we've seen in this time, in this bear market, is that there's people who are hunkering down and building, and then on the other extreme end, there are people who've been really disrupted in their building. And it seems to be a story of one or the other. So I want to talk to a builder. Eddie, over to you. You're building Vibranium ID, which you can tell us a little bit about, but I'd love to hear from your perspective how the current bear market, the ecosystem that we're in, has affected your perspective of what you're building, and it's affected even your engagement with others in the ecosystem, with funders, with fellow builders, and what that has been like from a builder's perspective.
Thank you, Lilian. Hi guys. I'm Eddie Kago, the founder and CEO of Vibranium ID. So Vibranium ID is a Web 2.5 company. So we are providing a way for businesses and developers to integrate business identity verification in their services. So we have a developer API that allows you to have know your customer ID verification in your application, in the same Web 2 application or Web 3 application with a few lines of code. So that's for the developers. We also have a business dashboard that allows businesses with no coding background or tech background to do instant verification. So our verification provides a way to now biodata verification, and as well as decentralized KYC. So in terms of the whole journey building with Vibranium, we are currently building the Near protocol, and we belong to Near Kenya Guild as a grantee of their fund for builders. So back to the question. So in terms of what the current environment is like for us, we just keep building. So as CZ famously says, CZ from Binance, just keep building. So and our destiny is not crypto heavy. So we're on the infrastructure side. So it's like no one cares who maintains the street lights, but when they're off, you'll be marked. So so in the same sense, for your service, for service that you're building, or that you rely on to change your money, if you get hacked or if identity was watched, then you'll have a problem. So in terms of the current condition, I would say it's the best opportunity to spot what to work on. So, especially with FTX accounting as a blessing. So, with all that saga of what happened, we can now identify spaces or what we can provide as a solution as well for upcoming Web3 companies in the crypto side. So, there's an upcoming phrase that's being thrown around, proof of results. So proof of results is a way that you have DEXs and decentralized exchanges showing how much results they have, so that now they have customer confidence. So that's a form of compliance, and that's where we see that. So I really love beer markets because when we started building, it was in around 2017, and it was during the ICO months. So, and that's when we got into identity and a bit of supply chain using blockchain, and now FTX has brought another blessing to us. So, yeah.
And that's awesome. I think that is really great to hear that there are opportunities in the movement in the market. I'd like to go back to Vincent and get a sense of what that is like from an investor's perspective. There's a lot of liquidity and fluctuation in this market. A lot of fluctuation in the market. And exactly what I just said, we're in a bear market at the moment. There's a lot of movement and disruption. So what is that like from an investor's perspective? Does it affect how you think about investment and also exits? Because inevitably, when there's a little bit more of a stagnant market, it means that you have to have a forward-looking perspective in terms of what opportunity areas there are, and certainly for you as an investor, what exit is like. You said that you're investing from pre-seed all the way to Series B, and so this would really affect you. How has that affected your thinking around investment?
Great question. Thanks. And so I can think of 3 points. The first one, I'd like to say we need to separate trading apart from building, right? So actually in blockchain, in the crypto world, there are 2 types of people, right? So one is like a builder, right? So you build things and you leverage blockchain, you build the utility of the token, and you use the token as a way to solve the real issue, right? The real world issue. Like you improve the efficiency, you improve the transparency, or you improve the way of running things, right? So this is one thing. And the other thing is that a lot of guys, so they don't really solve the real world issue. They just do trading, right? For example, like the case of FTX, right? So they move the money and then they do a lot of high leverage trading things, and then they cannot pay back, right? So my point is that as a founder, right, as an entrepreneur, let's first focus on building, right? So what kind of issue you're solving with your product and solution, right? And what benefit or what kind of things you can improve from blockchain, using blockchain, right? I think this is the first and fundamental question you need to ask from day one when you in touch with blockchain, right? Instead of asking, so how is the token price going to be of my project, and how much money we can cash out from the tokenization, right? So this is my first question. So always focus on building, always focus on the real issue and also the solution. So this is the first part. And the second point is that what we're back, right? So if you look at the companies we back, we invested. So most of the founders, they just try hard to solve the real world issue, right? And from our side, we would like to back these kind of founders. Even we know that it will take a while, it will take a long time, even though they don't really have the experience of launching tokens and then cash out from it, right? So we like to back the founders who really build things. And the third thing is that our investment strategy and also the strategy of cashing out, right? Because we're not really a very traditional VC. We do equity and then we cash out from the sales of the shares or the IPO, right? What we try to build is that we encourage and we expect founders to build a solution on Cardano chain, and but it's not a must, right? So build on Cardano chain, and then we wish that we bring more and more utility to the ecosystem, to the Cardano, and also this can be a really win-win situation for the founders, right? So one thing is that we cash out from the tokenization for sure, and the other thing is that what I want to emphasize is that now, yes, for sure it's a bear market, right? But the thing is that the bear market is perfect for building, right? So just make use of this time, try to build things, right? Try to polish your product, try to do some small tests. Even you don't launch token, you don't really list it in the exchange, but try to polish the product. And this is the perfect time to do this, right? And as an investor, we want to take that patience to grow with the founders, and then when the bull market comes, then we can do more things and we can have the fruit, right? So this is the overall philosophy of our investment and also the way of exit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the gospel that unites us all on this stage is that call to builders, and a call for builders to build. Because ultimately, the more people who are building on chain, the more robust the technology is, the more we're able to find, even where the kinks are, the more we're able to really sort of test out the technology. And as I said earlier, it's great to be on a panel where there are 3 layer 1 protocols on the same stage. There's Near Protocol, there's Cello, and there's Cardano, represented by Vincent from AWS. And I think the unique position that we have is that we almost have like a macro view of where the movement is, where the crops are, what is really happening on a macro view. And on that, this gospel of builders, etc., continues to unite us. There's so much that does unite us. And so I'd love to hear from you, Daniel. What do you think are some of the roles that the layer 1 protocols play? And what are some of the things that can unite us? I think across the continent we see that people are building in isolation. And clearly there's a lot of builders in the room, even before we start talking about what areas to explore, what areas are ripe for disruption at the moment. There's the question of chains. And whereas previously being going in isolation, there's quite a lot of area for us to collaborate, to work together. So I'd love for you to touch on what some of those areas are and what some of the things builders really should be keeping in mind when thinking about what chain to build on. I love that Vincent said, for Adaverse, you don't have to be a Cardano native business or startup. And clearly then there's a lot of room for co-working. So if you are a builder in the room and you're considering what platform to build on, what are some of the things that you need to consider? What are some of the things that unite us alongside this gospel of builders?
Thank you for the question. In fact, I noticed I was the only one who didn't say hi. Yeah, so I think the layer 1 protocols play a very important role in educating the developers. Ultimately, the principles of blockchain and decentralized finance and data and the other aspects of how we use this technology are the same. And then it starts getting very difficult to differentiate why to be on this network and not the other. And so sometimes it can be that I'm on a particular network because I'm friends with the guys on that network. It's just a reality that we find. And so mission alignment, becomes one of the things that perhaps a leader would look at. What do the general people working in this ecosystem believe? What are they working towards? What's the kind of future they are leading us to? And so for those that resonate with a particular message or mission, they would gravitate there. So this is just to highlight how people are in certain networks and not the other. Others is just by stroke of luck. That was the first place where I heard about it and I attended an event on it. Others, traded that token and it did well for them, and so they really swear by it. So there's a variety of ways that we find ourselves here, and then now we get to choose our paths from where we find ourselves. But the layer 1 protocols, especially in Kenya, if I can observe my journey across, layer 1 protocols have been really key at getting the people to know about this technology, what it can do, to inspire the developers to start considering Web3 as an avenue through which they can continue to express their creativity, to encourage founders to also consider that perhaps they can leverage this technology either to build for a global audience or to achieve things that would have previously been difficult to achieve. And so I think that has been my observation of what layer 1 protocols have been doing. And that is why our conferences and our events such as this ones, you find it is really easy to collaborate. As I've been working, I've also found a lot of synergies. For instance, I'm very aware that we are living in a multi-chain universe. If I was not, I would be very stressed and angry at all the people I am on board into Web3 and take them through, and then they meet Vincent and they decide to also build on Cardano. So I would be very stressed, but that is not the case. So I'm aware that we're in a multi-chain universe. And it really helps because you'll find that you can build on one network because perhaps it's fast, it's affordable, or that's where your engineers have the skill and they can pick up the technology easiest. And then you find that on another network it will be easy to source liquidity for that marketplace that you have designed. Or on another network that has done a lot of groundwork, it will be very easy to leverage their ecosystem of users and get started and plug in. And so the multi-chain universe continues to be a reality, even as we continue to look for our own protocols. But at the end of the day, the decentralized world that is emerging from what we are working on continues to be the main thing on a macro level. If we are to look on a macro level, I think it is growing and advancing. The community keeps on being refreshed and getting bigger. For instance, this past week I was at an event hosted by William and Vincent, and there was more than 80 people. And there were very new people that I haven't met. And many of these people have demos to show. Compared to 5 years ago, we didn't have any of that. And so it has been the persistent effort of ecosystem players. And there are those that are, I would consider to be almost playing the roles of layer 1s, but are not, don't have like a network itself, like our media partners. They've done quite a lot, especially for Kenya, in educating people, even going all the way to hosting actual classes and supporting people to build. And so in that way, they've really expanded the scope. Yeah.
I'm going to jump in and say, you guys better work well together on the chains because, yes, I agree, we're going to be in a multi-chain world. And as someone who is in the business of bridging Web 2, Web 3, and with a very honest and realistic expectation of the fact that the future is not going to be all Web 3. So I'm a recovering BGen. I at one point was quite convinced that everyone is going to be on the blockchain, everyone's going to be self-sovereign, everyone's going to have self-custodying credentials on the, no, that's not the case. And we need to be quite sober and realistic about the fact that for people like myself and MFS Africa who are trying to bridge these people from Web 2 and 3 and trying to bring the next billion African users into Web 3, either via exchanges or what have you, we need to have that be incredibly easy for people to use. So I found that we're having multiple discussions in my work with various layer ones, and yes, I'm having really engaging discussions. Yes, we're getting a lot of foundations offering to give us money to do certain things. We understand that yes, it's important that we should kind of try and work with everyone. But I'm really keen on the future where bridges are safe. Bridging between layer ones is safe. I'm keen on a future where we can imagine a CeFi being the front face of a DeFi. So like a centralized exchange being at the back end and then being run by a decentralized exchange. So having the user experience layer of it be incredibly easy, incredibly accessible for people to use it, completely abstracting the complexity away. I'm personally excited for that future. I'm excited for a future where people are already building that right now. Like Vincent said, we are in a bear market, prime time to build really cool stuff. And if there's any builders right here, I would say, start building something that is user friendly. The UX is actually is usable. And when I say UX, I'm not just talking about design. I'm talking about the actual way that customers use a thing. And we need to take lessons from fintech. So my deep background, despite being a DJ on the weekends, I'm a fintech person. I've built banks. I've worked on payment rails all around the world. And one thing that I really can commend fintech for is the UX. Phenomenally easy. M-Pesa is just easy to use. The reason it's gone viral is because it's easy to use. Various in South Africa, there's a ton of really amazing insurance apps that are going really niche with their distribution and the customers that they're targeting, because fintech makes it so that you can actually make a good user experience. DeFi crypto, on the other hand, does not have good UX. And I know that there's a lot of people working on that right now, but right now, the way that my mother or my aunties are going to join crypto is not going to be the way that I waded into this space, with various keys that I lost and USBs and all this stuff. So if anyone out here is in the room is interested in building in this space, try and learn lessons from fintech and Web 2, where they abstracted the complexity away. I don't understand what SMTP is, but I know how to send an email. Completely this concept of the DeFi crypto mullet, the haircut with business in the front, party in the back, fintech in the front, with DeFi or crypto power in the back, completely abstracting that complexity away for user experience.
I'm so glad you said that.
One thing for the question that you asked in terms of what chain to use. So I had that and I've been having that for the longest time in terms of what chain should I use. So I look at the chains in terms of use cases. So it depends on the use case. So if you're looking to build, let's say, an interbank settlement system, so are you going to use the Bitcoin blockchain? Maybe you have to use a permissioned blockchain. Or if let's say you want to build a marketplace or an exchange for cryptocurrency, maybe then you'd have to use the public blockchains. Or if you have a way that now banks will talk to Binance, then you'd have to use a hybrid kind of chain or blockchain. So to theirs, I would say, let's say that for example, our choice to use NIA is even because of the tests that NIA has as a layer protocol, so you find it's even going back to, let's say, who's behind. So for example, you find the person who's written here is a guy who wrote TensorFlow. So you don't have to hang around with that guy. And that's actually one of the ways I use. You don't have to read all the papers. Maybe just choose what's your use case. Then after looking at your use case, don't. I know it might not be the most easy thing, but there are so many airdrops and whatnot, but if you're convinced about your use case, then there are chains that are already available that cover that. So, for example, I started off with Hyperledger. So, it's very relevant. It's being used by mass shipping company, but will it be the best solution, let's say, if you're going to integrate for DeFi and Web 2? Maybe not. So yeah, that's the approach I use to choose a chain.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, use cases require certain chains. Like, yes, like Algorand or I forget the other chain you mentioned that Musk uses. Yes, those guys. Yes. So these are this is an aircraft carrying ship. It's a tank in terms of the capacity that what it can actually do. Whereas when you think about Polygon, for example, or Solana, fast, nimble, people are able to build really quickly. Solana was still I think still has one of the biggest NFT ecosystems because of how easy it was to join it. So I agree, and I think that your use case is going to determine which chain you go on. But if you look at these large logistics shipping companies, for example, maybe if you look at the way they do communication, let's look at Web 2. They're probably using Outlook. I don't doubt that they're using Outlook. They're probably using Outlook for email and OneDrive, whatever it's called. But you know what? There's probably a team that's building something scrappily right now and is using Slack and is using WhatsApp maybe. So there's room for a multitude of different use cases. So there's times when you need an oil tanker, and there's times when you need a Ferrari. And it's just best to have a big garage, is what I would say.
Yes, that's the best in a big garage. I love the back and forth here because this is exactly the conversations that we wanted to spark. Excuse me. And these slightly differing opinions, I'm sure, are also happening in the room. So I'd love to give everyone a chance to also jump in and get some questions going. You've heard from these guys, you've heard some of their positions, some of their points, you've heard a little bit about some of the areas that are really calling for more robust conversation. And obviously for everyone who's in the room who knows even a little bit about blockchain, that there's so much more. So why don't you guys give us some of those topics that we can talk about? Wait, if I fall over this stage, okay, last year, hi. Why don't you say hi to the people, intro yourself, and share some questions that you might have for the panel. Oh guys, from this angle, you look for you. Yeah. Only just 2 years now. Okay, over to you guys.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I'm Bastian from Utu Technologies. We're building a Web3 focused trust infrastructure system, as we call it, enabling AI to integrate our trust engine or recommendation system so that users can see which of the known people recommend something or warn against something. But that's just a side. I was asked to introduce myself, so let's make it clear. The question that I have, which is actually relevant for Utu, but also for all blockchain people, I think, and maybe even all people, is so we have mentioned these recent events which have, I think, instilled some renewed mistrust towards centralized entities because of reasons, and a new push towards decentralization, or at least that's what I seem to see on social media globally. Do you guys see this happening in Africa? Is African blockchain Web3 space pushing also against more towards decentralization again, being more skeptical about centralized components, backends, whatever? And what's your impression? Maybe mostly the layer one people here.
Absolutely. I think everyone has been part of this industry, probably has an opinion on this. So whoever wants to take it, is that like passing the mic or fighting with the mic? I don't know. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so of course, the recent events have been quite disheartening. But looking at the pitch from the centralized entities, I think they really weigh on the user experience, the simplicity, the management of the difficulty with using this technology. And they offer a lot of additional services like ways to convert different currencies to what is usable today. And so that pitch continues to be a very strong pitch for both people who come in and people who have also been around the space for a while. I remember when I was joining, there was a crusade, with the slogan, "Not your keys, not your passion." And that slogan went on for a long time because there was this kind of crashes in the centralized entities. And so my observation has been that the ones that seem to be most trustworthy continue to aggregate the most users, even the users who fall out from the ones that have crashed, more than a decentralized approach would, or rather the decentralized use cases would attract. And the decentralized use cases struggle a little bit on the user experience. They need a little bit more investment in knowing how it works, plugging in the wallets, having a wallet, plugging in the wallets, knowing how to manage whatever transactions, the processes of gas fees and how to regulate that. And so they do require, or they come with a very high level of abstraction, which to many may be tiresome. On the other hand, they may not also offer the direct fiat conversion, which is probably one of the biggest value propositions that centralized entities would have over the decentralized exchanges. And so, as perhaps you continue to look for solutions, perhaps a decentralized exchange that taps into the fiat ecosystem would be a really good value proposition to make it possible to build, because it would be tapping into a market that is exploited heavily by the centralized entities. So those would be my observations. I haven't made any observations across how this looks moving forward. I know people who lost money in Mt. Gox and subsequent other exchanges, so it seems like something that continues to happen, like a musical chairs kind of thing, and you just watch to make sure you are sitting on to get covered. So that's just really my observation across. It's really sad, especially for people who have lost funds, especially because the entities have lacked that fiduciary responsibility.
Thank you so much. Vera, I'd love to go to you, answering the question, but also I love the analogy that she used of the mallet. And so, from what Daniel has said, it sounds like the mallet would be a solution. So why don't you share your thoughts on the question that asked you, share and how follow on how the mallet approach might be a solution?
Yeah. So I want to just start by saying everyone in the room who has, just like me in the last weeks, done a lot of free emotional labor, a lot of free education to aunties, investors, your parents, friends. My heart goes out to all of you. Yeah, this scandal has kind of brought the bottom a lot sooner. I think it's going to come a lot sooner than a lot of us expected. But I will say that DeFi is still working as it should. Like, DeFi is still fine. Uniswap is doing wonderfully, actually. A lot of decentralized exchanges they're trucking along as they should. They're transparent. They are giving, it's the future of decentralized blockchain technology that we all wanted out of this. FTX was a group of bad actors. A year ago, I probably would not have said this, but now, we've seen what's happened, and it's a damn shame, and it's really unfortunate. But yeah, this is where the mullet comes in, and as someone who's a recovering degen, where at one point I kind of thought that we would all be on DEXs and we'd all be, living our lives in the metaverse or whatever. No, we still need to have some tethering to the real world. We still need to figure out a way to serve jobs to be done, which is framework of thinking, product thinking. So jobs to be done for regular people, for businesses, for institutions. And what the mullet does, so fintech in the front, DeFi powered in the back, not only does it give solid UX that is accessible, it also has a layer of compliance that we can trust, which compliance is rooted in trust. Compliance is stipulated by regulators. Regulators, as much as those of us in the fintech world and financial services can be a little bit frustrated, regulators exist for a reason. Regulators exist to protect consumers, to protect investors, and there was no regulation with the FTX scandal. There's no regulation with centralized exchanges. Now we're getting all these stories and questions about proof of funds. Even that's unregulated. This new concept of Merkle trees that maybe might solve this, but proof of funds could be a snapshot that could, it's very easy for me to move money from my savings account to my checking account, then be like, hey, I've got money. But there's no regulated body that's, or at least independent body that's auditing these, and there's no real guardrails. So whilst I'm very proud of how DeFi, the core of DeFi has pulled through this nonsense and this nightmare, I still think that we need to have a tethering to TradFi in some ways in the traditional financial services ecosystem. And I'm just speaking from a financial services perspective, not from identity or anything else. But I believe in regulators. I'm begging. A lot of us are begging to be regulated. But that hopefully will come soon. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, thank you so much. So I've seen the responses from other L1s, certainly from a near protocol perspective. There's been a lot of conversation. There's been a lot of conversation with our community, sharing what our position is, understanding that so many of our community has been affected by FTX and the general state of the market at the moment. And there's an assurance and a reassurance that is necessary at this time for newbies coming in, for builders who are building, etc. So, final comment on that question for you, Vincent. What has been the response from a Cardano perspective, from an Anniverse perspective, in terms of engaging the community?
Yeah, I think I just try to comment on the last question, right? I think centralized thing, decentralized thing, so we can see it in two angles. First angle is that if we talk about the product, right? If we talk about the fitness of your project, there's always a trade-off between efficiency and security, right? So I think for the efficiency side, we cannot deny that centralized thing is sometimes it's more efficient than decentralized, right? So let's take the DEX as an example. I don't know how many of you are trying DeFi, doing trade in DEX and also doing the lending in DeFi, and also the investment, personal finance in DeFi. Actually, from my side, I find it's very difficult to operate, right? So many complicated steps to do that, and also a very bad experience to lose my keys, lose assets on the wallets, and then some very bad experience, right? And for the centralized thing, for sure, we also have some bad moments like FTX, and we also have some good moments. Like, for example, like off-ramp is difficult to solve, right? Like DeFi, right? It's still we need to run something very centralized thing. So I think it's at the end of the day, it's like a trade-off, right? For some part, you need to go for centralized solution, and for some part, if you want security, then it's better that you do DeFi, decentralized thing. So actually, from Anniverse perspective, we have another angle, right? The angle is that the integrity of the founders, right? So at the end of the day, product-wise, we can give solution, we can give suggestion that for some part which is not really related to assets, you can do centralized thing. For example, even for DeFi, for some kind of projects, you need to use the AWS as a cloud service, right? But for some asset part, if you can do it in like DeFi, in decentralized way, for sure you can do that, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about who you are. Right? As a founder, you must have your integrity, right? You need to care for users, and you need to build your credibility in the ecosystem in a long time, right? So those are the founders we really like to back, we really like to invest. And then, so the two angles, one is that centralized, decentralized thing depends on the product, right? The other thing is, no matter what you build, you need to have the integrity. Yes, that's from my side.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you brought up the element of the integrity of the founders, because that was really a big thing that was brought to question with regards to FTX, and I'm glad that we've been able to circle back on that. I wanted to make allowance for one more question, but unfortunately, I was just going to say, unfortunately, we're running really tight on time. So perhaps what I'll do is, I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask your question. And if we're able to ask both questions, I'll give opportunity for the panelists to choose which of the two questions they answer. And the rest will be food for thought for those who are in the room. And of course, the panelists are here. We're all here to continue this conversation, but I think it would be great for those questions to be food for thought. So,
I think I was taught to stand up whenever I'm asking a question. So I'm new in the space. We are looking to something for. My background is in real estate. I've been doing real estate for many years now. And I'm new. In fact, I started reading about blockchain. Seriously, looking into it like 2 months ago, right? And we're trying to build a product on NearGen to help people with evaluation, because there is a lot of problems when it comes to accessing data to be able to value the property. And so my question to Eddie, as somebody who's built on tech, what are the 3 things that you would tell somebody who is looking to get a startup grant? I think I've just finished on my pitch, and that will be very helpful to know. Yeah, she is my friend, but I think for you, from a builder's perspective, what would you tell somebody, hey, going with this and that? With my background in with spirituality and looking to educate a lot of people around that, I am very interested in helping people gain new knowledge, and for where having had you talk about education. One of the things that we're looking to do with the product is we're looking to onboard a lot of people who will go out and help us with data collection. And sometimes I do reckon that will be a challenge, because crypto has this because of multi-level marketing. It has this bad rapport in the market. So 2 questions there is where do you fetch these people? And then number 2, the question will be how do you educate those people in the sector that would need that education?
thank you. Allow me to have you do that.
While you do that, I'll just quickly say, Eddie, don't you forget, also, Eddie's advisory check should be coming. I won't be his answer, but.
To your question, for anyone else interested in NEAR, so NEAR Energy, NEAR Kenya is the representatives of NEAR in Kenya. So the 2 things I see the most biased towards is your solution something that customer can pay for. So is it a real problem that you solve, in the sense that would you want to scale it to a bigger market as well? And the other thing is, what's your approach to using blockchain? Does it even really need blockchain? So, or if it needs, how do you intend to integrate the whole, the blockchain part of it. So, but at the level, at basically, let's say, even maybe what principles with others looking at it. When you're building and you're looking for, let's say, investment or grants, it's best to have a working product. So, first do something, have some proof of work. So, yeah.
Amazing. Can I just get a nod for Daniel and for Vincent if that also resonates for Cello and for National Purpose? Yeah, excellent. Thank you. I want to say this was not pre-planned. That question was definitely not pre-planned. But it's good to highlight that across the board and across chains, it is the same. Where would you like to give a quick answer to that question, and then we'll get a
Super quick answer is that we can't answer that question for you. You're gonna have to go out and work yourself, get out and figure out like what your product market fit is, where your educator is gonna come from. But I will say that every single chain or L1 or L2 even, every single one of them have a foundation that is doing education. Everyone is doing education. Just figure out who's doing education programs that resonate with what you're working on, and tell them that they're always happy to introduce you to the right people. I really like, for example, in Kenya, what Mara is doing. So Mara is doing some really, they've got the Mara Academy and the Mara Foundation doing a lot of really cool stuff. So just start by doing the research yourself and figuring that I can give you an answer, but it's kind of like saying you're asking me where do I find people to educate? I might tell you, talk to people who are in fintech, but you said you're in the real estate space, so I don't know, you have to figure that out for yourself. Like I said, Eddie's check, his invoice will be coming in now.
That sounds good. Final question.
First of all, thank you so much for the debate. My name is John O'Connor. I'm the Director of African Operations at IOG, which is the company that builds Scarlane. So one of the things which we've heard a lot from you guys is how we need better UXs, better user experiences in crypto. For me, where the rubber hits the road, though, is key management. The reason why people have used centralized exchanges and use centralized experiences is because they don't have to handle their keys. And losing your keys is a crazily common problem, which is insane when you think about the value that's riding on it. So my question specifically is, have you guys seen anything which will enable us to start doing better key management? No more mnemonics, the ability to recover even if you lose whatever piece of paper. Anything which would really let us to start taking this technology and these use cases to the billions of people who are within the target market for crypto. So yeah, any innovations or anything you've seen which can really make a dent in this important problem?
Thank you so much. I think this is a great question as well. Vincent?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good question. Me myself, I lost several times my own keys, right? On Solana, Phantom, and even on Euro Wallet for Cardano, right? So I cannot really find back my assets, right? So I think it's a good question. And so one thing is that go to Ledger, go to but it's still the same level of innovation. But another thing I just saw from Nigeria is one project. They're building like a Web3 version of 1Password, right? So they build a kind of decentralized storage system to store the keys for the user, right? I think it's a good direction, although the solution is very nascent, right? It's more like managing all the keys with another key, right? But again, they go to the decentralized storage and they go to the non-custodial way, and I think we can pretty much explore the possibility in this way. So I'm happy to share more with you after this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for putting that brief. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much. Feel free to follow them at Not Guerra on Twitter. Guerra has an excellent feed. At Eddie Paco on Twitter or at Vibranium ID.